Dear God, this book. Listen, I watched the video several times, then forced myself to put down the phone, then picked it up again, watched the video again. I'd travelled the world from top to bottom, literally. I'd hopscotched the continents. I'd met hundreds of thousands of people. I'd crossed paths with a ludicrously large cross-section of the planet's 7 billion residents. For 32 years, I'd watched a conveyor belt of faces pass by, and only a handful ever made me look twice. This woman stopped the conveyor belt. This woman smashed the conveyor belt to bits. I'd never seen anyone so beautiful. Why should beauty feel like a punch in the throat? This is Prince Harry describing the moment he first laid eyes on Meghan Markle. Love at first sight. Then the electric intensity growing on both sides with each breathless, tentative step. Love blooming into something incredible and glorious. Something, as it turned out, that could meet every challenge. Hello, this is the second video in my series about Spare. If you've heard it's just a big whinge, you've been lied to. If you've only seen it trashed, you've probably only seen the naturally very defensive British reviews. Ignore them. Read it. It's phenomenal. This video is about as chaotic as a book review can be. I still haven't finished reading it. God, I miss the days when books were the main thing I read. And not only did I jump ahead and back, I've also scrambled it with random excerpts doing the rounds on social media. Look at this page on their decision to leave the UK, where Harry talks about his trepidation at suddenly having to make a living after being raised in what he calls this unending Truman Show in which I almost never carried money, never owned a car, never carried a house key, never once ordered anything online. Sponge, the papers called me. But there's a big difference between being a sponge and being prohibited from learning independence. A lot of reviews dwelt on the irony of a 1%er being so publicly aggrieved. But this book isn't just Harry airing his family's dirty laundry for sympathy. It's a brutally well-evidenced and compassionately reasoned critique of a foundational British institution. Brits have accepted the behind-the-scenes dysfunctionality of the royals for decades. It's just how things are. Price of stability. But a fifth of Britons now live in poverty. Confidence in political institutions is plummeting. Stability isn't under royal control, and more young people want an elected head of state than a monarch. No prominent voice yet dares to admit this ship has all but run aground, though God knows you can see it in the captain's face. Critics bitching at Harry for privileged whinging are missing the point no Briton really wants to see, which is that when the monarchy has devolved into a real-life Truman Show, something in the very constitution of the United Kingdom has gone drastically wrong. If a prince can't call it out, who will you listen to? Truth is, the royal family made a catastrophic error when they mistook Meghan for a threat. Sure, she was different and disruptive and had way too much star quality for a Spares wife, but that's too bad. Because while most Britons don't want to abolish the monarchy, they do want the royals to be genuinely admirable. And what today's young people find admirable is very far removed from the expectations of Charles's youth, not least in the matter of race. Harry and Meghan's union represented the monarchy as forward-facing, dynamic and proactive, all the things which it then speedily proved it was not. Harry lays out the evidence for a series of devastating decisions made principally by the King, Queen Camilla and Prince William to privately reject Meghan as too disruptive to the firm, and perhaps also too popular with the people not to cause constant ruffled feathers across the family. To then urge Harry to separate from her, to launch through their close contacts in the British media an uncontrollably vicious, near industry-wide character assassination of Meghan that made it unbearable and unsafe for her to remain in the UK, to cast off and effectively sacrifice Harry when he wouldn't leave his wife, and to never think again of all the things that were said back when everyone was welcoming a mixed-race woman into the royal nucleus about moving with the times, expressing or representing the Commonwealth at large, and adapting to the future. Tittle-tattle about the brutality of the palace media machine will run out of steam, said some PR expert in the Sydney Morning Herald, as if we were talking gossip rather than serious systemic dysfunction. They'll need a new narrative to keep getting book deals and so on. But they have an epic, ongoing narrative. It's the central question Spare raises, no matter how tacitly or reluctantly. As Joyce Macmillan put it in the Scotsman's clear-eyed review, Harry's story suggests the whole structure is becoming too dysfunctional to sustain such an extraordinary weight of myth-making. Is the monarchy savable? Curiously, none of the reviews I've seen has put the central themes of Spare together with Harry's pursuit of media bullies through the British courts to recognise a concerted intent, a clear agenda, a genuine mission. Harry's a man who's had to fight circumstance since he was a kid, a man trained to fight and made in the process, a soldier looking for a war to win. Spare traces his successful search for a peacetime battle worth fighting. Halfway through the book he asks, how do you stop being a soldier when a soldier is all you've ever been or wanted to be? And he finds his answer. You don't. Even when you stop being a soldier, you don't have to stop being a soldier. Ever. More than a memoir, more than mere expose, Harry's book is a seminal document, a source text for future discussion of empire and monarchy, media and privacy, privilege and human suffering. A Boston academic called the book a goldmine for historians. Psychology websites spin off articles discussing Harry's frank and forensic exploration of grief. Credit really has to be given to J.R. Muringer for this beautifully structured, literate and deeply engaging work, and for how nicely he's caught Harry's tone, his wit, passion and sensitivity. A review in the New Yorker picked up on the allusions to Hamlet in early chapters, and the book does bear witness to Harry's search for a purpose and a sense of reality. He's very much a troubled prince feeling for a path, but he also happens to be an insider chronicling a central institution of Western civilization as it stumbles into what may be irreversible decline. Because, more than anything, what Harry exposes in Spare is the way all the working royals live in acute and corrosive fear of the media. On page 237, he describes the frantic, farcical numbers game prompted by the annual court circular, itself an 18th century innovation attempting to ensure truth in reporting, with each working royal desperate not to be the one the media will pillory for slacking. The family was feeling the tremors of global change, he says, hearing the cries of critics who said the monarchy was outdated, costly. The family tolerated, even leaned into the nonsense of the court circular for the same reason it accepted the ravages and depredations of the press. Fear. Fear of the public. Fear of the future. Fear of the day the nation would say, okay, shut it down. The Windsors are caught in a fatal trap. In order to retain the aloofness considered appropriate for royal personages, never complain, never explain, they allowed a once subservient media industry to become the royal mouthpiece. But that was 100 years ago and more. Now the mouthpiece speaks for itself, says whatever it pleases, menaces anyone who objects. Perhaps the saddest thing about Spare is Harry's portrait of Charles, a sorrowful and helpless king, a decent, damaged, well-intentioned man, entirely unable to even try to break the media's stranglehold on his life and his family. In fact, the relationship between the royals and the British media is like an abusive marriage, a lethally intimate codependence that amounts to a form of state capture. No wonder Britain's such a mess. It's like the entire royal family are a cosy pot of well-warmed frogs, and Harry, born into water already hot, is the only one with the wit to jump out. I guess he got kissed by a princess. But he didn't just hop off to America. He's back there still, side by side with the British people in the courts, fighting like a modern-day warrior king, fighting to curtail the destructive power of the tabloids, and maybe, just maybe, to save his family, its honour, and even the crown, as the water in the pot begins to simmer.